Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending April Fool's Day, Saturday, April 1st. I can't believe we're in April. It's just, oh man, first quarter of this, or yeah, the first quarter of this year went by pretty quick, I have to say. But then again, they say that that's just how it is. The older you get, the faster time goes on, and which means you get older faster. And it's not a pleasant thing to think about. So we're just gonna move on from that and move into some positivity in our readings. We do have a lot of positive aspects going on. We have quite a few signs that don't have much of anything going on in terms of planet activity or anything like that. So, that can be a good thing. Sometimes it's better to not have any planet activity. Anyways, still have a all direct week as well. No retrogrades, no shadow periods of retrogrades yet. Which is quite nice. Actually, nothing holding us back. So, well, nothing holding us back but ourselves, right? Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Darcy. And we continue to have Venus and Uranus in Taurus. In fact, they are moving into conjunction with each other next week. When planets are in conjunction, it means that they're both equally working together for a specific cause, and with focus continuing to be on your support system. This is actually a beautiful pairing when you think about it. Uranus really is all about being rebellious and, in some cases, being a loner rather than surrounded by people, which Tauruses can really go either way, honestly. But Uranus is also has that sort of quirky, let's look at this in an out of the box kind of way. So what would normally be the people that you would go to for support, Uranus is kind of like, why not look at the people that you normally wouldn't go to for support? Maybe there's something to learn there, if that makes sense. Venus is very feminine, very creative. It's all about love. And I love her influence. I always love her influence. But I really feel that it's funny because I can sort of connect with this also. I really feel that I know that it's come up in your reading that feminine support is really important. But I also feel like exploring the different types of femininity is really important. Maybe going out of your way to meld with different types of feminine energy than you're used to. For example, I tend to mesh better with men than women, and it's not because I'm anti-woman at all. It's just there are a lot of feminine energies that really kind of get on my nerves, and make me kind of hate being a woman like them, even though I'm not really like them, if that makes any sense at all. It sounds kind of weird and it sounds kind of rude, but I can't resonate with a damsel in distress. I just can't, because that's not who I am. And I know that that's not who you are either. But I also am kind of feeling that there's something to be learned by that, and maybe even something about ourselves to learn, because as much as I say I'm not a damsel in distress, maybe I am sometimes, and I just don't realize it. And I kind of feel like this may be something that's coming up for you this week. And I think that the moon right at the end of the week moving into Leo, actually, let's go to the beginning of the week, because, oh no, we don't have the moon in Taurus this week. Yay, that was last week. We're over it. But the moon does move into sort of a squared position with these two planets right at the end of the week. This is how we're going to round out and end the week, right? And the moon's influence is on the past. So I feel like these past issues with these types of women may be sort of bringing up some triggers for you, if that makes sense. But that is part of the healing process. That's why these triggers come up. And I can resonate with 1,000 triggers from those types of women for multiple different reasons, right? So I have found in the past that it was very helpful, and that it did help me to embrace my own femininity in a way, which was something that I was kind of pushing away for a really long time because I didn't want to associate with this type of femininity. And I just feel that that part of you wants to come out, and this healing of this particular is necessary in order for this part of your femininity come out, if that makes sense. The other thing that I really am being pulled, because the other than that square with the moon, Uranus and Venus are not interacting with any other planets all week long. It's just them. And it's almost like Uranus has a very male influence, although honestly, it could be sexless. It could really go either way if it wanted to. But traditionally, he is known as he. And of course, Venus is a very feminine influence. And this brings two, male and female, together. So two things also really come out of that for me. One, there may be a relationship developing between you and somebody, or a reconnection, if that makes sense. But also, this is about having a balance of your masculine and feminine individually, your logic and emotion, and using those two parts of yourself together specifically to make a very difficult decision, if that makes sense. And it definitely requires both of those sides of yourself in order to make an educated decision. And because they are both focused on support, I feel that the support that you may need to do that is also available there to you as well. So it's actually a very a very positive and productive type of energy to get you through the week, which is nice. We've had challenges, we've had all the challenges we need. Let's enjoy the fact that we got through the challenges. Let's enjoy the fact that we're here now. And I know you, and I know you're going to have moon or no moon on Saturday. I know you're going to enjoy the hell out of your April Fool's Day. So that's what I have for you. By the way, there's no April Fool's jokes. Just saying. In the whole video, it's not going to happen. Okay, moving on to Kendra. So we have Uranus and Venus in Taurus officially moving into a conjunction with each other this week, focused on your support system. So a conjunction is when two planets visibly look like they're in the same place, like one on top of the other one, which is kind of weird considering they're on opposite sides of our planet. But in our viewpoint, it does sort of look like they move next to each other. And when this happens, astrologically, they're working together so that both of their influences are working towards something specific. In this case, Uranus is very, first of all, it's a masculine influence. It's a very quirky, rebellious, sometimes rebellious influence. It's not about tradition. It's about change and creating new ideas and doing things differently. And then Venus's influence is very creative and very feminine and very sort of I love that everybody kind of mentality, which is just a beautiful, absolutely beautiful influence to be working with, especially with it being your ruling planet, right? Then and all the way up until the very end of the week, neither of these planets is interacting with any other planets. It's like the two of them by themselves creating this magic, which is absolutely awesome. Two things come out of this for you from as far as I can see. One, because this masculine and feminine is coming together in terms of your support system, I really feel that this has a lot to do with you and your husband. It's like finding that space to really come together and work together in a way that maybe hasn't been present as often recently because of the different challenges and stresses that the two of you have been going through lately. But all of a sudden, it's just like all of that drops, and you're like, no, we're never going to get through this unless we really work together in this. That makes sense. The other thing is that I feel like in terms of your support system, which I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel you're very picky and choosy about who is in that support system, which I get. I totally get. I'm the exact same way. I control it as much as I try to control everything else. But that part really is neither here nor there. I feel like you have been growing your support system more so recently, and I really get some very creative ideas from that support system in terms of your goals, for whether they be your personal goals or your professional goals, if that makes sense. So there's literally like 4 or 5 things that almost seem to pop up throughout the week in this sort of weird coincidental way that you can put towards what it is that you're creating right now, if that makes sense. As we get to the end of the week, the moon moves into a square with these two planets and causes a little bit of a challenge. I mean, come on, we've had no challenges all week. So it's just the one day, and it's not an April Fool's, even though it does fall on April Fool's. But the moon's focus is on the past. And so with it being the moon and being an emotional experience, we are specifically looking at specific situations in the past that are creating triggers for what you're doing right now. And so this really could be one of those situations where you and your husband, it's like magic and everything is working beautifully all the way up until something happens on Saturday, and then you're back to your normal. Not, I wouldn't say normal, okay, you guys don't normally yell at each other all the time, but it just feels like you took one giant step back and the whole week was a dream kind of a thing. And that happens. Actually, this is just one of those instances that gives you an opportunity to handle the situation a little bit differently so it doesn't get out of hand and you can go right back to 2 peas in a pod, if that makes sense. I see actually a lot of togetherness this week. So what I mean by that is family time. Like there's ample opportunities for family time specific, and that it's really the important thing is the 4 of you being together and nothing else. And it's like you just shut the outside world out, and it is the unit together with King George, Queen Elizabeth II's oldest, or her father, used to refer to the family as we 4. It was him, his wife, and his 2 daughters. It's you 4 with your 2 sons, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not like there's an event that's taking place that is requiring this togetherness. It's more like we have time and fell into the togetherness. Let's just enjoy it as much as we can and have fun with it and not be stressed out for a while. So it's a very good week for you. Yes, that moon thing at the end of the week is a little bit of a pain in the butt, but really that's what it is. It's a pain in the butt, call it what it is, and then move on from it, because life is full of pains in the butt, right? It just is what it is. We can't have a pain in the butt free existence, right? So that's what I have for you, Kendra. And I am moving on to Jeannette. Hi, Jeannette. We're going to kick off the week with the moon in your sign. And also, Mars is 0 degrees Cancer, which means it's still on the cusp of Gemini, at least for the first few days of the week. It moves pretty close to being out of that cusp by the end of the week. And then when we get to next week, it won't be on the cusp anymore. I have no clue who you are, so I'm not answering. Yes, so that's the particulars. Oh my goodness. Oh, it went away. Awesome. Okay, well, yeah, I don't know. I know nothing. Oh, they did try to call a second time. If they call a third time, then I'll answer the dang thing. And if it's somebody that I don't know, I just might have to do nothing. I mean, what am I going to do, right? Okay, so good news is that Mars is in a trine with Saturn, which is an influence that you will feel. Yes, Mars is still very much focused on inner trauma. Saturn continues to be focused on your long-term goals. Again, we're just promoting anger triggers to come up so that you can release them. And if I remember correctly, you're going to be here in California, actually, with your friend, and helping her go through all the things that she was going through. And so I kind of feel that some of those triggers are going to come up around that, if that makes sense, for a couple of different reasons. It has to do with the relationship that you guys have. It has to do with how long you guys have known each other, but it also has to do with similarities in situations that you dealt with. So for instance, the most obvious one, she's lost a parent and you've lost a parent, and that is going to bring up triggers of you losing your parent. We're talking about anger triggers, which anger exists around grief just as much as it does anywhere else. And so with that being said, this is an opportunity to release some old anger around that situation, if that makes sense. And at least if you can still feel Mars influence, it is in a fairly I would say positive influence, rather than too terribly challenging. We do have the moon. We're kicking off the week with the moon, and we will have the moon in your sign Sunday and Monday, and then it moves on by Tuesday. And that is going to cause a couple of little issues. Specifically, oddly enough, the moon comes into a square with Saturn. Now we're in a trine. Mars and Saturn are in a trine, but the moon comes in to create a challenge with Saturn. So we're talking about long-term goals here, which is what Saturn is focused on. Saturn is always pointing at what is your responsibility, and whatever it is that you want to do, that is your responsibility. And the moon is also focused on inner trauma. So I really feel that, in a way, this has to do with the fact that you're looking for a job, the fact that you're wanting to start up your own production and your own career and doing your own thing. I feel like because for a minute there at the beginning of the week, Saturn is also in a square with the Sun and Neptune, which is focused on career. So I kind of see this playing out as a panic. Either you don't get good news about a job or something about work is coming up in a negative way. And that creates that panic. And that also creates that hamster wheel in your brain that starts going in a million different directions about, I'm going to do this. No, I need to do this. No, I need to focus on this. Trust me, I have the same hamster wheel. I know all about it, right? If you're out here, none of that matters right now anyways. Okay, so you're wasting your time trying to figure out something that you can't do anything about right this minute anyways, right? Try not to let it get you, take you into that crazy space, if that makes sense. The moon continues that square with Neptune specifically when it moves into Monday. So just be aware of that. There's a couple of days that might be a little bit wonky, but it doesn't have to be the end of everything. As we get towards the end of the week, things do kind of calm down a little bit and smooth out. I also am getting, once you get past that emotional roller coaster there for the first couple of days of the week, a lot of really brilliant ideas that you need to write down and put in your purse, okay? Because I feel like if you try to remember them, you're going to forget. But as either as you're going on your travels or as you're sitting down and talking to people, these ideas are going to come up. So be prepared. Have a notebook and a pen in your purse or something like that, so you can write down these ideas. There's also the possibility that you may be able to pick up some business with your little crafting stuff. So, just be open to talking about it and designing and what's the word I'm looking for? Not negotiating. Oh my gosh. Anyways, it's just like I see, this group of ladies and you're bouncing ideas off of each other. Make sure you have a pen and a piece and a notepad in your purse to write them down, because this could be a partnership developing, this could be a client developing, this could just be a conversation where you get a bunch of ideas, right? Either way, you want to be able to write them down so that you can focus on that later. That's what I have for you. And I'm moving on to Connie. Let's see. We do have the moon coming in at the very end of the week. And no, that is not an April Fool's joke. I wish it was. But it's not. I swore I wasn't going to do any of those in the video. And the moon's actually, well, first of all, let's not even worry about the moon until we get to the moon, because it's the end of the week. Beginning of the week, and all week long focus is on the past with Lilith, the dark moon's influence, kind of sort of influencing that, still retrograde. And so anything that's retrograde is mirroring that back at us. So I would interpret this as a time where these past things are starting to trip you up a lot more this week than maybe they have in previous weeks, if that makes sense. Which is unfortunate. That's not necessarily, I come on here and go, woo, you're going to be stuck in the hell of your past. A lot of different things obviously are out there to trigger that. I feel like the dark moons, almost with retrograde, the dark moon's all about extreme change. When we're retrograde, it's almost like we're unable to change it. And I feel like it's very easy to fall into that feeling of, I'm never getting out of feeling like this, if that makes sense. And when the moon comes in on Thursday through Friday and Saturday, that almost accentuates it like a lot more, which could be interpreted as dealings with these people that promote even more triggers to be coming up, if that makes sense. Unpleasant indeed. The moon on Thursday, as it's coming in, is in a T square with Pluto as well as Mercury. Mercury is focused on your career. Pluto is right on the cusp of relationships and finances, which is interesting to say the least. The moon's influence is on self before it moves into the past. So I sort of interpret this for you to mean that there are triggers coming up in work just as much as there are triggers coming up from the individuals that usually promote those triggers. So either situation feels familiar with a client, or their personality feels like one of those people that there's personality traits that tend to trigger you. So with the moon being so prominent and with this coming up, it's really important to ground and bubble. First of all, it's really important to be prepared for this to be coming up, so that if you are prepared and you go in knowing that this could happen, it's easier for you to maneuver the situation rather than getting triggered quite as much, if that makes sense. We continue into this opposition with Pluto as we get into Friday. We move, it's not quite as big of a challenge. It is still a challenge. We move into a square also with Uranus and Venus, which are in conjunction with each other, focused on your support system, which may trigger more I don't have anybody to support me feelings, which definitely come from past experiences as well. So no, there's nothing about any of that that says that is going to be pleasant. It is actually going to be very difficult. And yet at the same time, it's not something that you're unfamiliar with. As we get going and we're moving forward and we're healing, we always get tripped up. And you have so many different people to trigger you that it's hard to avoid it completely. The best thing that you can do is literally write it out as best you can. Your grandmother is saying that you can easily write it out with ice cream cones. And if you want to eat ice cream cones when there's snow everywhere, maybe there won't be snow everywhere next week. But it's pink and it's fluffy and it's makes you feel better. She's not promoting obviously feeding your feelings with food, because she does that a lot, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It's just more her reminder of saying those instances are more of an excuse to spoil yourself and make yourself feel better in some way, if that makes sense. As we get to Saturday, the moon continues that square with Uranus and Venus, so it's not quite as big of an aspect. Still a little bit of a challenge, but it's not as big of a challenge. I kind of feel that this is sort of like you've dealt with, the situations that you've dealt with everybody. You've had your overwhelming moment. You're on the kind of down slope resting period at this point. So it's getting to the point where it's over. Or pretty close to being at the point where it's over, which is good. Still may not feel like you're 100% supported, but that's okay. You're running through the emotions on that. The good news is the moon moves into a trine with Jupiter and the sun, and in the middle of all of this, or being born from all of this chaos, is some really good news, career-wise and work-wise. So either there's a really good appointment, or you just have a really good appointment added to your schedule, or something really good to look forward to. And specifically because Jupiter is very much a part of this trine, Jupiter is all about growth and expansion. So it is also possible that this news has to do with taking the next step in something, or the possible opportunity to grow in some way, which financially is definitely one of those ways. So that's what I have for you, Connie. And I am moving on to Jenny. We have no planets in Leo until the end of the week, and the moon comes in, creates a little bit of chaos, and then leaves like she does every month. Kind of like that monthly thing we have to go through, actually. Pretty much the same thing. No wonder they say that the moon rules our cycle, because it's very much the same thing. Up until that point, though, we don't have any planets influencing Leo. We do continue to have the dark moon in Leo, in retrograde still, and focus is on the past, and her focus is very much on the past. This is interesting. The Lilith is all about promoting major changes, and in retrograde, it actually feels like you can't change anything. And when we're focused on the past, that is absolutely true. You can't change what happened. You can only change how you feel about it, how you react to it. And I feel like this may promote instances to come up that reflect on past experiences where you've had a hard time letting go of the attachment to it, the feelings of it, whether or not holding on to this promotes growth or promotes not growing. And these are pretty big ones, actually, pretty big roots of things that, maybe you have worked on in the past and just sort of set it down for a while because it became too heavy, if that makes sense. And that's okay. We can always set it down for a little bit when it gets too heavy, but mark my words, it always pops up to come back in some way, shape, or form because you haven't dealt with it yet. So I feel like that is something that may be coming up this week. Not great timing, obviously. It's not like you're not busy. It is April 1st this week, and that means crunch time, I'm sure. So it's not pleasant for something like this to come up and get in the way. Towards the beginning of the week, it seems like it's a back burner issue, like it's in the back of your mind, but it's not taking over your life. But that moon coming in on Thursday is going to change all that. And unfortunately, make the last 3 days of the week, we're going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, basically with the moon in Leo. And we're going to kick that off with a pretty major challenge as the moon moves into a T-square with Pluto and Jupiter right as he's coming into Leo in the afternoon-ish, we'll say. And Jupiter's influence is on career, and it's all about expansion and growth in your career, while Pluto's influence is very much right on the cusp of relationships and money. I a lot of times will interpret this as your relationship to your money, but I think that this is better interpreted in terms of what it is that you're doing, and it because you're not focused on your own finances, you're focused on everybody else's currently right now at this time. So, and the moon's focus is on self. I feel like this can be one of two things. One, either you're focused on work, but there's somebody from your personal space that keeps trying to take your focus off of that because they want to focus on them, and you just can't focus on both things. And you also can't figure out why they just can't get the fact that you're busy right now, and that's going to be frustrating, obviously. Or I also feel that there is a possibility of one individual client that is really making things difficult for you to get everybody else's done, if that makes sense. It's like they keep trying to take up all of your time, and the fact that they're doing it isn't stressing you out. It's everybody else's stuff that's hanging over your head that is stressing you out. And so it's really important to ground and bubble and keep yourself focused on staying out of that frustrated space. And I'm being told you already laid down boundaries. And I'm also being told to tell you that they're not good enough. You need to lay down better ones. That's all I'm saying. It's you've been nice. Okay. Now it's time to lay down the law with that. As we move into Friday and Saturday, we're not quite in such a big aspect in terms of a T-square. We are still in opposition with Pluto on Friday. And as the moon moves into focus on the past, and Pluto's influence is pretty much more on relationships than it is finances at this point. And Uranus and Venus are focused on your support system. So I sort of feel like when you're in this overwhelmed situation, it almost feels like you're reaching out for support and not getting it. It's like, sorry, but everybody else is busy too. Well, obviously they are, right? And that just sort of adds another layer to it. What's important here is that we don't look at this situation in the same way as, say, a past situation where we weren't supported, because they're completely different. And you don't want to turn what's going on now into something that's way bigger than it actually is, kind of a thing. So it's really about managing your emotions through a very difficult situation. I'm just gonna send you lots and lots of love and stuff to get through that. As we move into Saturday, we're just in a square with Uranus and Venus. However, the moon is in a trine with the sun and Jupiter. And I feel like we're also boasting past successes and just sort of reminding ourselves, hey, you just got an offer for something bigger, and you're making more money now, and things really are good, even though this is a situation that is really frustrating to you. Okay, so it's not the end of the world. It's just this one guy. It's always a guy too. So in any case, I know you can do this. And the other good news is that the moon does not come back into Leo until after tax season is over. So this is the last time that you have to deal with it for this year's tax season. So, or at least until the first deadline anyways. So that's what I have for you, Jenny. And I am going to move on to Linda. Let's take a look see. So we have no moon action this week. That's next week. We'll actually be kicking off the week with the moon next week, so we can enjoy the fact that it's not here this week. That's what we'll do. Focus is on the home. Ceres continues to be in Virgo also. In fact, it's retrograde, so it's kind of moving backwards into Virgo, which will happen for a few weeks, and then it'll move back on out. Ceres is that maternal nurturing influence, and we're retrograding that. We're reflecting that back at ourselves rather than putting it out. We're reflecting it back to us. Two things come out of that. It's good. Let me take a swig of coffee. It's good. First thing is, I remember having a conversation with you when we went out to lunch a long time ago. I don't remember which one of the lunches. There was quite a few of them. where you had said something about belly bloat, like the belly was sticking out, and you said, and I know I'm pregnant with something, but I don't know what, kind of a thing. And that's the key word that they're giving me, is pregnant with something. So this could be an idea that you've been sort of bouncing around for a while. This could be an extension of what you're already doing, but it's like the seed has been planted for something either brand new or something that's going to help make things run smoother in something that you've already got going on, if that makes sense. The other thing that I sort of pick up on that is because the focus is on home for Virgo, and Sheri's focus is very much on home as well. I sort of feel like I know we've talked a lot about getting the space together, as you've been moving, and I sort of see at this point by now that I wouldn't say it's 100%, but it's getting there. I mean, you don't let a grass grow under your feet. So things are pretty much, set up the way that they're going to be set up at this particular point. But it's almost like one thing, it's so weird. It's like there's just this one thing that you keep putting off. And I feel like this week you've just got to bite the bullet and do it, get it done. I'm not sure what this thing is. I just know that putting things off just makes you have to think about it more and more and more. But and I know that too, but even though I know that doesn't mean that I don't do it, right? I feel like this week is just that week where you're like, okay, I can't take this in the back of my head anymore. I've got to do it and move on. I just got to get it done. Kind of a thing. It's, yes, not something that you want to do, and no, not something that the world's going to fall apart if you don't, but for your own peace of mind, just get it done. And that's pretty much what I have for you this week. Except incoming, I'm seeing a black car. I don't know if you have a black car or not. I don't remember what kind of car you have, to be honest with you. I'm seeing a black car. I'm not seeing it doing anything. It's just sitting there, right? So I want to say either you're trying to plan a trip and just haven't really had the time to focus on it. That time to focus might be coming up here this week, or if there's any kind of maintenance that you've been putting off on the car, you know better than that. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And that's what I have for you. And I am going to move on to Matalyn. No planets in Virgo this week. We're kicking off next week with the moon in Virgo. So nothing this week, which is good. We'll enjoy that. We continue to have Ceres influencing Virgo because it's retrograde. It's moving backwards back into Virgo. So it's moving further back into Virgo this week than it was before. In fact, it was right on the cusp at the beginning of the week. It's the beginning of this week, and then it sort of moves out of that cusp, if that makes sense. Ceres is known as the Great Mother, so she has a very maternal, very nurturing influence. Her focus is very much on the home. I have heard through the grapevine, aka your mother, about some plans that you may have been having, moving in with your boyfriend and different things like that, which I don't necessarily have an opinion. I'm not here to tell you not to do it from an adult's perspective. from one adult to another, I am going to say to listen to your mom only because you're going to learn on your own, okay? But the advice that she's giving you in terms of roommates and stuff like that is good advice. It is very difficult these days for a lot of people. Oh my God, today, hold that thought. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Most people were blowing up my phone like crazy, and I guess there was a good reason for it. So here it is. Anyways, back to what I was saying. It is a good idea because it's very difficult financially for everybody. And the more incomes you have, the better. I totally get where you're coming from on it. I do. I really do. But maybe extend out and look at other options also. Don't close any options is all I'm saying. Okay. I'm not saying you should do what your mom advises you to do. I'm saying to keep an open mind on all of the options, because it's not that I see that what you want to do is bad or stupid or anything like that. In fact, it's very exciting. From a parent's point of view, it's a little scary, but that's not going to go anywhere, honestly. I felt the same way when John left, every time he left, honestly. So and now he's back again, which is why I'm saying anything that you can do to help out those finances is really going to be helpful. And make sure that you're doing this for the long term and not to come up with a solution right this minute, okay? Because you have to take the long term into consideration also. The other thing that I'm picking up in terms of, and I'm kind of bringing this in, I've sort of heard about your plans for a while now, but I feel like this week is really going to be all about those plans, if that makes sense. Like every, your focus is on that and on that only, almost. The other thing that I really, 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 I'm stressing this as a woman to another woman, okay? It is absolutely imperative that you don't give up your plans, your independence, your financial independence, or another human being, period. I can't stress it enough. And it's not because men are bad. It's not because I feel like you can't count on this man. None of that. Okay. The most perfect man in the world, and he's gonna let you down at some point. Every single person that you ever met in your entire life, they're gonna let you down at some point. And as a woman, it's imperative to be able to fall back on you every single time that happens. It's not going to happen every time. You're not going to spend your whole entire life by yourself. I'm not saying that. But we can't get away from that. There's no possible way that we can get away from that. It's going to happen. So it's very important that when you're young, and the reason I bring this up is because I was there. When you're young and you fall in love with somebody, in your mind, they're perfect. Everything is always going to be great. You have this sort of vision of what it looks like in your head, and it's awesome. And you know what? Most of the time, it is like that vision. And then there's a lot of the time where it absolutely isn't. And you don't want to put yourself in the situation to where you wished you were not relying on this other person. And I am speaking from very personal experience that I am going through right this minute. Oh my fucking God. I don't even know who the fuck these people are. Weird that this is happening during your reading. Weird that this is happening today, the phone, because I also feel like you're being pulled in a million different directions, and I think the phone ringing like that is one of those indications that that's happening. And it's not so much that people are being pulled in a million different directions. There's just a lot of things, I think, that are pulling you in a bunch of different directions. And rather than getting overwhelmed with that, you want to be very aware that that's something that could be coming up this week, and to manage it as best that you can. So don't be afraid to say no, number one, especially if it's something that you just can't put into your schedule for whatever reason. And the other thing is, it's exciting sometimes to take on a whole lot. Don't take on more than you feel like you can handle, if that makes sense. And take a lot of time for yourself as well. Alone time, time just for you, time to just sit quietly and meditate, time to just sit quietly and talk to your grandma. These things are always going to be important, regardless of what everybody else wants from you, if that makes sense. So I'm sorry that it was a little bit difficult, but that's what I have for you this week. Moving on to Theresa. No planets in Libra this week. Ceres has moved on to Virgo. We're kind of on the cusp at the beginning of the week, and then it sort of moves out of that cusp by the end of the week. So being that Ceres is technically in Virgo, but on the cusp, you still do have that sort of influence coming in there a little bit. Libra's focuses on those you love. Ceres focuses on the home, and it's retrograde. And Ceres is what they call the great mother. She has a very maternal and very nurturing influence. If she was direct, we would be projecting that influence out to others, hence the focus on those you love. Ceres being retrograde sort of mirrors that nurturing back at ourselves for one of two reasons. One, because we need to nurture ourselves. Two, because I kind of sort of feel this very familiar feeling. It's like, here you are, and everybody's like, Theresa, come help me with this. Theresa, come do this for me. Theresa, 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 Theresa. And you just feel like sucked dry, like you've given all of your energy to everybody, and there's nothing left for Theresa. And this is where Ceres being retrograde really comes into its power here, because I feel like, especially at the beginning of the week, there's a very strong influence there telling you that you need to nurture yourself, and that especially those few days of the week, you need to put that focus on nurturing yourself rather than putting that on other people, if that makes sense. Now, in the past, I feel that you've been of that mindset to where, no, I'm taking a day to me, and everybody else can just, wait till tomorrow because this is Theresa's day. But then you get a phone call and you go, well, I'm taking a day tomorrow. All right, fine, I'll do it. That's not nurturing yourself. Okay, that's martyring yourself and expecting somebody to see that, which they're not going to. They never do. We already know this, right? So if this is important to you, do it. And it is important to you, because if you don't do this, nobody else is going to do it for you. granted, there's the possibility that the people could do it for you, but when you're expecting it or when you're really needing it, I don't know what it is. It's like all of a sudden they all disappear. It's kind of weird. That's one thing. The other thing that I feel coming up around you this week, I'd almost say that you're dying for the outdoors. But I know you've probably been out in the outdoors, snow or no snow, but I think this is more, God, I need some sunshine. I need to slap on my bikini and go get some sunshine. It's like, I mean, I feel it too. It's like we're crawling toward it, if that makes sense. Because every time it seems that we get lulled into a false sense of security with beautiful weather, bam, here comes more rain and snow. It's kind of annoying. But I don't feel, and that's going to be the case next week. I feel that you may not be able to slap on a bikini because it still might be a little bit cold, but there is a chance for some sunshine and to be out in the outdoors enjoying that sunshine. And if you can do that at the beginning of the week, that'll set you up for the whole week. It's almost like this is just what you've been waiting for, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you. And I'm going to move on to Regina. We have no planets in Scorpio this week. We are in between focuses this week as well. I usually get a focus next week, which is good. But yes, in between focuses still this week, which is kind of nice. Heart of Fortune is coming into your sign Friday and Saturday too, which is an opportunity for you to have some luck coming your way. The Heart of Fortune is all about luck. And so if you were looking for some lucky days, Friday and Saturday definitely look like they would be it. And that luck brings an influence of those you love into the mix as well. So I feel like you may have surprise visitors or surprise get together, or a get together that is planned that you might think is not going to go very well. And it turns out that things actually work out very well and there was nothing really to worry about. It's all good, and is what I'm saying. I see all good, all good, all good. The other thing that I'm kind of sort of picking up on this week is the end of the week with the Part of Fortune and the luck coming in and everything is sort of a gift, because I feel like at the beginning of the week it's like everything is ass backwards. This is the best way I can describe it, where it sort of feels like the Mercury retrograde happened, but it hasn't yet, honestly. And we're in this sort of deranged Mercury retrograde land that really isn't existing right now. Not even a full moon, nothing. There's no, I've actually dealt with a lot of that. I was like, what is it? Is it a full moon? I know Mercury is in retrograde. There's no full moon. What is the reason for all this insanity and stupidity? And I guess we live in a world where we don't need a reason. It's just there, milling about with everybody else, creating chaos wherever they go, kind of a thing. Not pleasant, not fun at all. But it does feel a little bit chaotic. I want to say that meditation keeps coming up. Or maybe it hasn't come up for you before. I can't really remember. But the more you can do, even just these quick little couple of minute meditations, like on your break at work or on your lunch break, something like that, it really helps to kind of re-energize and sort of refocus. I have a ground and bubble video. One of my playlists, the HMP informational videos, has that ground and bubble video in it. If you would like to look at it, the ground and bubble technique is a visual meditation that I use all the time. Literally don't leave the house without my bubble, which you can use all the time to personalize it, make it yours. It helps me not to pull so much crap from other people. because I feel like you are sensitive to that sort of thing in many cases. It also helps me to not take on the craziness. So if somebody is in a bad mood and they direct it at me, I don't take it home with me. Whereas without my bubble, I very much do take it personally and then take it home with me. I don't want to take home other people's garbage. Okay. And I know that you don't want to take home other people's garbage either. So that is also a thing that I feel I'm picking up on kind of at the beginning of the week. No rhyme or reason to it, just kind of chaotic and crazy for the first couple of days, and then things sort of simmer down, and we kind of end the week on a high, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you, Regina, and I'm going to move on to Theresa Sheppard. Um, no planets in Scorpio this week. No focus for Scorpio this week. We're still in between focuses for one more week. We do have the part of fortune coming into Scorpio, bringing you some luck at the end of the week, and we can always use a little bit of luck, so that's kind of good. And the part of fortune's focus actually brings a focus of those you love into the mix there. So I feel like, again, this is time to spend some time with the family. I feel like you haven't really had a lot of time to spend time with the family. And so I get the word reconnect. It's actually a good time to reconnect with a lot of the people that you just haven't really been able to connect with in a while. It sort of opens up space for that, if that makes sense. I also get the feeling that it's kind of funny to say it this way, but I get the feeling that the reason why you have this space open is because there's a lot of issues going on with the airlines right now. There's a lot of issues with a lot of different things going right now, and these problems, which you can of course worry about because it does affect your ability to make money, are also freeing up space for you to actually stop for a minute and just enjoy being with your family for a while, without thinking about how I gotta get packed and leave right now, if that makes sense. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. It's not really a good thing that this is happening, but it opens up space in a good way, if that makes sense. The other thing that is really sort of popping up around you right now, I see like I don't really understand what I'm seeing, but it's almost like I'm seeing a like a halo or something like that around your head. Um I'm not sure what that means. I really don't think it's because you're going to die or anything like that. Not that they would show me that anyways, because I would panic. I would. Okay. I would. I know that that's not what that means, but I do feel that it could have something to do with evolution or a level up, if that makes sense. Whether it's a level up on the spiritual realm, the career realm, the personal realm, what have you. I sort of feel like a light bulb moment almost hitting you at some point this week. And it's like something that's always held you back suddenly just goes, it's not holding me back anymore, if that makes any sense at all. And that is what I have for you, Theresa. And I'm going to move on to Jillian. We have no planets in Scorpio again this week. We have nothing to focus on again this week. Scorpio continues to be in between focuses for another week, and then we are actually given something to focus on next week. This is usually doesn't happen for this amount of time, but these particular houses are quite big, and so it's easy for a sign to slip in between and not actually have anything to focus on when they're really big like that. the part of fortune comes into Scorpio at the end of the week. So Friday and Saturday brings you luck, which is nice. It also gives you a focus, as the part of fortune is focused on those you love. And so there's one of two things that come out of this. One, there's time opened up to spend time with somebody that you haven't really been able to spend time with in a while, or quality time, as in somebody that you normally spend time with, the way you spend time changes, if that makes sense. So things were difficult, now they're not quite so difficult, and such and such. I also kind of get the feeling, I remember, actually, I think this is who's coming through, when you were a little girl and your great grandmother passed away, and you told me that you always knew when she was around because you saw a white bird. And I'm seeing this white bird, and this woman, this great grandmother of yours, is coming through for you. And there's two things that she's showing me. One, she has this huge bouquet of roses, and they're deep red roses, and I interpret that smell with, and that, and roses specifically, with love, unconditional love. And the red ones seem to have, they're the most fragrant. I mean, I can really smell these roses. So it's like she's wrapping you in this love. She's also saying you can smell the roses from time to time, meaning that you are actually smelling these roses from time to time, not knowing why. It's her. She's just like, I mean, engulfing you with these roses. The other thing that she's that she's saying is, in her life, she was really held down, I guess. Like, she could have been all these different things, but because she was a woman in that generation, because of the people around her, she took too much of what people said around her to heart, and it sort of stopped her from moving forward. And she says she doesn't want to see that happen to you. She's also saying, the lion, oh god, it's a saying and I can't think of the words. The lion doesn't worry about the opinions of sheep, meaning that the bottom feeders over there who aren't doing anything to help themselves don't have an opinion on what you're doing to help yourself, if that makes sense. There's no right or wrong way of doing this, okay? Yes and no, but I mean, really, there is no right or wrong way of doing this. As long as you're progressing forward, that's all that matters. This woman is with you everywhere, by the way, everywhere, all the time, and she's not going anywhere, okay? So you're gonna see the white birds, you're gonna smell the roses, and you're gonna know that every step that you take, you're not doing it on your own. She's taking those steps right next to you. She's with you 100% of the time. So that's what I have for you, darling. And I am going to pause. We're leaving off with Sheri. Okay. I'm going to pause because I run out of time and I have to do a class, and then I'm going to come back, do the last ones. You guys won't even know because it'll just like be blip, I'm back, you know. So anyways. Okay, moving on to Sheri. What do we got going on today? We got no planets in Sagittarius this week. And focus is on your day-to-day schedule, which doesn't give us a whole lot to work with. Then again, not necessarily a bad thing, right? Focuses on your day-to-day schedule. Okay, so I'm sort of seeing some time opening up in one part of the week. Like you actually have time, like you can go, oh my God, I have this time. What do I do with it? Kind of a thing. Which is exciting. I don't think that this was time that you initially had. I feel like it opened up, if that makes sense. Which is kind of like a fun little gift or surprise or something like that, for lack of a better way of saying it, I guess. Your mom says to use that time constructively. I'm not 100% sure what she means by that, but she says you will, because I feel like it's sort of something she used to say all the time, if that makes sense. And she's just kind of laughing, and she's like, and hopefully she'll listen to me now, right? Not to say that you never listen to her, but she has faith in you, you know? I think your mom always saw greatness in you that you maybe don't see or don't want to see or have seen, but you're like, I got plenty of time for that or something. Which of course we know we don't have plenty of time for anything, you know. We have a time limit, as always. So but I think that she's also saying use that time constructively in terms of you have other stuff that you put on the back burner, and it is a good time to, you got open time to kind of sort of deal with some of that stuff. But it's not because you don't deserve to use that for fun time either. It's just you'll have more fun time if you get some of this crap out of the way, if that makes sense. The other thing, that I feel is while you have this time opening up 1 minute or 1 day, it's like at the opposite end of the week, you're almost overbooked, if that makes sense, because things keep popping up. And I'm actually seeing something. I mean, literally the vision is like an axe right in the middle of the pile of things that you have to do with the, you know, it's like a Monty Python thing, you know, where the arrow hits the guy and he's like, message for you, sir, because there's a message on the arrow from a damsel, what he thinks is a damsel in distress. But this isn't like a message of help. This is more like somebody, you've already got a lot on your plate and somebody comes in and throws a fucking wrench in the middle of it. And it's not even like, oh my God, this needs to get done. This is more like, I'm dealing with this stupid shit again. So I want to point towards people who tend to cause a lot of problems. And it's just that this time, right now, this is not good timing. You know, it's like he's blowing up your phone and you're like, dude, I got shit to do, right? You go after that, not in the middle of it. And yes, I am talking about your brother. It's that Virgo, no, pay attention to me right now, and you got enough things to do, and he's just going to have to wait. And if he doesn't like waiting, then you can't help him. It sucks to be him, you know what I mean? That's, I hate to say it that way, but it's really the only way that you can say it, if that makes sense. Because I really feel that this is like, it's not life or death, okay? But the things that you have to deal with in that moment may not be life or death either, but they are very important things. And one of these days he needs to get through his thick skull that it's not your job to drop everything to focus on him all the time. There's an element of your mom coming through and saying that there's a reason why he does that, and in many cases she did that, and I feel like he's transferring that responsibility to you, and your mother is saying that it's not your responsibility and you do not have to take it, and you know that you do not have to take it. So don't feel guilty about that. He is not your responsibility. He is his own responsibility, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And that's what I got for you. And I'm going to move on to Peg. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule this week. We're fully moving into that focus of your day-to-day schedule this week, actually. Two things that sort of come up with that. The first thing that I'm seeing is a buttload of snow, and you being sick and tired of it, which I don't blame you for. Over here in California, we've gotten more snow, I think, than we ever have, ever in the history of California, I swear. I'm not stuck in it, as in it's everywhere around me, but it is quite a lot, and a lot of rain too. And for most of us Californians, because of our drought, we love it. But I'm for it being over and spring and the sun to come out. And I feel like I kind of feel that you're there to a certain extent with that as well. It's almost like the cold slows you down, if that makes sense, almost to where you are having a hard time getting motivated to get moving. Your joints are cold and you need time to warm them up, kind of a thing. I kind of feel that same way too during the winter time. It's that little bit of that seasonal depressive disorder that a lot of people get during winter time when they don't see the sun a lot. And I do feel like this week the sun's going to kind of appear. It may not get rid of all the snow, or may not get rid of the effects of winter, but things are warming up, and that I can feel that sort of energy. It's like you almost can't wait to see what you can get your hands into when that happens, if that makes sense. Speaking of getting your hands into something also, I'm seeing really busy hands. And so I feel like either you have a lot of ideas that you're working towards this week right now, or there's something about you being creative with your hands, whether that's in the kitchen with food, or whether that's something, making jewelry or something else. And I really feel that this has been going on for a while, but this week there's a part of me that says that that's going to be more prominent, and there's a part of me that says you're going to drop that because the sun's out and you go charging out the door. So it's not to say that you're dropping it for good necessarily. I just feel that it's not, doesn't have the focus that it did at one time, if that makes sense. And that's okay, right? As long as you're not leaving, a giant unfinished project, it really doesn't matter in the long run. But I'm also sort of picking up on, this may be something that you thought you'd try out and decided that it wasn't really for you as well. And then I'm also sort of picking up this feeling of, it doesn't matter what I try to do, it's like I never fit in to anything. And there's a reason why you're not fitting in, of course. Those of us that don't fit in, we don't fit in for a reason, because we're different. We're made to stand out. And that can be a very heavy responsibility to stand out most of the time. It is scary, I get it, but I feel like it's time for you to step into you're standing out power, if that makes sense. I've been running away from it for a long time too, and I can tell you right now, it seems to keep catching up to me, and I know you feel the same way. So it's getting exhausting running away. I think it's time to just accept what is, um, and let it be what it is, with boundaries, right? And don't get scared like you're going to have to accept something that does not resonate with you, because you don't have to do that. Nobody said that you have to do that, right? You can still do it in your comfort zone to a certain extent, but I feel it's time to embrace being known and to embrace your fame, your own personal fame, in some way, shape, or form, if that makes sense. The angels are all behind you, cheering you on the whole time. I can see them all standing there behind you. So that's what I have for you this week. And we're going to move on to Mama Sheri. No planets in Sagittarius this week. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule, which is full of little Tabitha. I know, full of little Tabitha. But I also see some people in there too, because I do see some clients I do see working, but I also see visits and reconnections. And there is the there is definitely a possibility of reconnecting with somebody you haven't talked to in a while. There's a little bit of a feeling of, I'm not sure I want to reconnect with this person, if that makes sense. Maybe because of past circumstances, but I also feel that it's important to give it another shot. Okay, whether you prove that you didn't want to reconnect with them or see them in a different point of view doesn't matter. What matters is you give it the opportunity, I guess, if that makes sense. The other thing that I feel is really coming up is your mediumship is getting stronger. Not that it was weak, okay, ever, that it was ever weak, but and I'm not saying either that you're having difficulty turning it off. I just feel like it's becoming more prominent again, like you're living with it instead of putting it in its place so you can deal, if that makes sense. You're sort of stepping back into, it is me and my dead people wherever I go, kind of a thing, embracing it more. My dad just keeps saying, I knew you could do it, baby. I knew you could do it. He knows it's hard. I mean, he's seen how hard it is for you, or how hard it has been for you. But we all come back to it when we're ready to come back to it. And I just feel like you are so moving past that doubting yourself place that you were in, and just really fully embracing who you are again. Sometimes that's a little difficult, more difficult than others, but for the most part, you are totally rocking at it. So good for you. I'm very proud of you. And that's what I have for you. And finally, we're moving on to Alyssa. We have Saturn in Pisces. We continue to have Neptune in Pisces. Actually, we haven't talked about this at all. Neptune's been in Pisces. As long as I've been doing horoscopes, Neptune's been in Pisces. He is not, I'm sorry, she. I called her a she, a he. And I didn't mean to. First of all, Neptune is Pisces planet. There's something about Neptune and Pisces together that really creates, amplifies intuitive connection and intuitive awakening, if that makes sense, which I just got off with you finishing your first class, and you did a wonderful job. And you're going through your intuitive awakening. Would you look at that? This has actually been going on for quite a few years, actually. And will continue to go on probably for a couple more. We're 25 degrees Pisces. That's 4 more degrees, and they move on to another sign, but it's going to go retrograde. So, oh my gosh, so sorry. It's been a long day. Bottom line is you still got a couple more years with that. Saturn just moved into Pisces, was actually a pain in my butt. I'm an Aquarius for about almost 3 years. In fact, Saturn moved into Aquarius in March of 2020. So that's what the energy of Aquarius and Saturn does when it comes together. It just screws everything up. Pisces is a little bit easier, I think, in terms of not blowing things up quite like, say, the pandemic did, for example. Saturn is all about personal responsibility, and Saturn's focus is very much on your personal goals, whereas Neptune's focus is on your career. So we're looking at focusing on your career goals specifically. Couple of things. One, Saturn is in a trine with Mars. Mars is very much focused on inner trauma, specifically the release of old anger that no longer serves you. And while a trine is a helpful, 2 planets working together to help you, it very rarely feels like focusing on your old anger is helpful, but it is, because you really need to bring it to the surface in order to identify, accept, and release and let it go. If you hold on to it, it creates fear over new situations. It tends to stop you from moving forward, so you're allowing that fear to stop you. Obviously that doesn't work very well. You're never moving forward. So this stuff is sort of Saturn is sort of, and Mars are both bringing this stuff to the surface, which means it's going to create triggers for you. But those triggers, once they come up, it gives you the opportunity to sit with how you feel, to acknowledge what made you angry and accept what made you angry, and accept that the situation happened. Learn from your mistakes in the situation. See if you can find any red flags in that situation that may be the same as the current situation. And then release that anger, release that fear, or be a little afraid, but pursue it anyways, right? It's just the more emotional trauma we have, the more excuses we make to not move forward. So we're eliminating excuses, basically, with that is what we're doing. Mars is in a square with the moon right at the beginning of the week, and the moon's again bringing some of that trauma up. Not exactly like, again, the most pleasant thing, because we're dealing with emotions here. So I mean, we're dealing with this right at the beginning of the week. Again, it's all about triggers happen to help you learn how to manage the trigger or work through the trigger. So you're going to have, unfortunately, these examples that are coming up. Being a Pisces can be very emotional people. And that's not a bad thing, depending on how the individual is dealing with it. A very emotional person has empathy and feeling for other people. They recognize emotions in other people, in order to understand, in order to care for them, in order to do many, many good things, right? When you get emotional yourself in terms of those triggers, these emotions start to convince you that you're not good enough, that you're not capable, that you're not pretty enough, that you are not as good as this other person. And unfortunately, all that really really does is give you the opportunity for you to convince yourself that you're not good enough and you're not capable. And it's all of a sudden your responsibility to fix that. Well, it wasn't all of a sudden your responsibility. It's been your responsibility this whole time. Okay. Saturn just now is coming in and reminding you of that, not giving it to you right off the bat, if that makes sense. Neptune is in a sextile, which I believe becomes a grand sextile by the end of the week, actually. With Pluto. Okay, it does not become a grand sextile. Is in a sextile with Pluto. So the two are working together. Neptune is focused on career and Pluto is focused on relationships. So again, we're bringing these, first of all, we're looking specifically for supportive relationships within your career, if that makes sense. So if you are looking at a promotion, you want to get the support of the person that can really help you get that promotion. And that's sort of what that lineup is about. Also, Pluto is all about personal power and transformation. So we're also looking at relationships that specifically are designed to help you grow and expand your knowledge to be able to move up in your profession, if that makes sense. So it's like those things are lining up in your favor in order for that to be available to you currently right now. So lots of focus on long-term career goals starting this week. And we'll keep actually that focus through the next few weeks. And when I say long-term career goals, what I see is a whole bunch of different options. It's not necessarily what you're doing currently right now. It's I could do this or I could, and that's fine. Do yourself a favor, write down all of the ideas because this is going to be your vision board, right? And once you have all your ideas written down, you can choose the one that you're really pulled to, that you really feel is what you are supposed to be doing. And then from there, you can start to pursue that particular career avenue, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you this week. And that is what I have for everybody. My goodness, I feel like it took me all day to record these readings. It really didn't. There was just a lot of interruptions and disruptions and having to stop and go and stuff like that. So it was just a little bit crazy there, but we got through the crazy and we survived it and it's awesome. I'm Alyssa Bruce, the heavy metal psychic, proving to you that no matter how crazy it gets, you will always get through the crazy eventually and get to the end of it. Thanks for coming in, hanging out, and enjoying the horoscopes. If you are not on this list, you could be for as little as $10 a month. Just click the link down below for the membership and check out the options. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I will help you navigate through those questions. Again, I'm Alyssa Bruce, the heavy metal psychic. Thanks so much for watching and have a great week. You guys make it a great week, everybody.